Hey guys, so this is the second video of the second session, and now we will be covering very important topics, and these will be the topics that will test how good of a Flutter developer you are. And the most important topics that we're going to be covering right now are going to be state and state management, right? And also forms and like taking input, right? So let's start with that. So till now you've seen that if we go to any of these files, right? So I have my home screen.dart, I have my list item.dart, and I have my location. Okay, this one is for a widget, main.dart. You can see that everything so far is a stateless widget, right? So so far it's been a stateless widget, and we haven't had to modify anything, right? So like suppose if I click on something, then some like if I click on this and its name should change when I click on it, you cannot achieve that with a stateless widget, right? And that's where state comes into picture. Like suppose if we see the default Flutter template, if I can just find it on Google, let's see. Right? So this is the default Flutter code, right? And here you can see that it's using the stateful widget. And now, why is it using the stateful widget? If you go to images and look at the app that's rendered here, you can see that it's an app where each time you press the button, this number gets updated, right? So if I press the button 5 times, it's going to show 5 here, and you can see it. So this is something that Flutter starts with, and no matter what example you look at, this is how the app is going to start. And this might be slightly outdated because this is how it used to look on Material 2. Now that we have Material 3, it looks slightly more aesthetic, but the functionality is the same, wherein if you press the button, it's going to update the screen, right? So why you need state for that? Now, if I have a stateless widget, and if I'm clicking on the button, then I'll need for the text to change, I will need the entire widget to re-render, right? Because it can't just change the text on the screen without refreshing the widget, right? And this refreshing that happens is only possible with a stateful widget. So when I'm declaring a stateless widget, essentially what I'm saying is that the widget will not refresh, right? There might be some sub widget in this which might refresh, but the entire widget. So here my app itself is a stateless widget, right? And this won't refresh. And usually it's good convention to make your stateful widgets as specific as possible, right? Because this way it helps the efficiency of your app. Like if only one small area of my app is changing constantly, it doesn't make sense for my entire app to reload again and again, right? And here reloading does not mean that the app will shut down and open again. It's just that all the widgets will re-render, right? So like if I refresh this, basically what happens when I refresh it is what will happen when, right? So when I saved it, it said hot reloaded, right? So that's exactly what is happening. So it's just re-rendering all the widgets again, right? So now how will this state be useful to us, right? So state is going to be useful to us when if we just go into this app. This is a completed app, right? So now when I click on add new place, here you can see that I have text boxes, right? So now I have three input fields and I need to get the information that is in these fields, right? So if I start typing here and let's say it's a stateless widget, right? So I've typed my name here, right? So I've typed my name, but now I need to store this somewhere, right? And I can't store it with a stateless widget because once I've typed it, I can't like add some sort of functionality to it, right? If I want to do that, I'll have to put an extra button which says just save data, which will set everything, all the variables, and then I can click on save to save everything, right? So this is where a stateful widget comes in, right? So if we just go to our screens and here me just look at my repo and how I've done it just for consistency, right? So here, okay, so it's a widget in this case, right? So it's an add item dot. Okay, uh, here I put it in the wrong place, but it should be a screen. So add item. So this convention I'm slightly unsure about. You can go search up how to name your Flutter files because this is something that matters when you're working in groups, right? So now, in my add item screen, I'm just going to start off the way we always have with material dot dart, right? And now I'm going to declare a class which is called add item screen, and here I'm going to say extend stateless widget, right? Don't worry, it's not a mistake. I just want to show you an easy way to get to a stateful widget from a stateless widget, right? So I'm just going to put the constructor here, add item screen, and super dot key, right? And we're going to override the build method, right? So this is what we have by default. Now I can just go here, select the stateless part, right click, refactor, and you can see the first option is convert to stateful widget. And now we're going to see the syntax of a stateful widget, right? So this is how you declare a stateful widget. So first you have your class, which is going to extend stateful widget, but it does not have a build method, right? The build method is going to come from this class, which is extending item, which is extending state. Okay, it's not extending stateless widget; it's extending state, right? And the state in these angular brackets, we are specifying what type of state it's expecting, and that state is coming from this class, right? So it is slightly overwhelming, but let me explain this to you again. So when you're declaring, uh, let's ignore this for now, right? So when you're declaring a stateful widget, I'm going to type my class name and type stateful widget, and the constructor is going to be the same. But instead of overriding the build method, I'm going to override this method called create state. And when I am overriding this, so like if I just type create and state, I'm going to get this sort of template, right? And here, what we're going to do is just right? That it's returning a state of whatever the class name is, right? So here it's add item screen, so it's returning the state of add item screen, and it's returning add item screen state, right? So now we're going to declare what this add item screen state means, right? So if I just get the code back, here you can see that I'm declaring another class called addItemSpeedState. If you're wondering why it starts with an underscore, usually in Flutter, when you're declaring local variables that will not be used much, just declare them with an underscore. This just signifies that their scope is really small or that they're not going to be used elsewhere, right? So just declare it with an underscore, and this is going to extend the state addItem screen because this is what we are expecting to return from our create state function here. And now this itself, this add item screen state is going to be like a stateless widget, right? So whatever we have done in these stateless widgets, we can do all that in our add item screen, but it does come with extra functionality, which I will show you shortly, right? So return, and now here what we're going to do is we're going to return a scaffold again because it's a screen, right? So you could add an app bar if you want to. This is more of a convenience thing so that when I click on add new place, if you want a back arrow here, you can click on an app bar. So I'll show you how that works, right? So in body, for now, let me just add a text widget. Let me just put it in center, right? Add a text widget, and let's say hello, right? So this is our add item string. Now, if we go back to our actual app, which is this one, Now here, if I want to access the screen, I need to have some sort of trigger, right? So we saw that there was a button that we used to access this. So we can do that again. And I think I used stack or a position widget to put my button exactly in the bottom center of the screen. And just for consistency's sake, let me go back and verify that. So here I have my home screen. So here you can see that I have an elevated button, right? So you can see that I'm using the position widget, right? So let me just go here and go back to my home screen chart, and in this, in the row, so this row is for the app bar. Okay, so here we have our children, and here I see list view builder, right? So list view builder is one child. So now what I'm going to do is wrap this list view builder around. So you might have to move the comma to the next line and just put this here. And if I right click and refactor, it's going to say wrap with column, right? So if I just do that, let's see if it breaks the app. Okay, so it does, right? So this is something important that you need to see as well. So what happens when you wrap around widgets, some certain types of widgets, like a column inside a column or a row inside a row, is that they don't know how much width to take, right? So to solve this issue, what we can do is select this again, put the comma on the next line again, and just select this, click, not the column, just the list view builder, refactor, click wrap with widget, and just put expanded, right? Hopefully this should resolve the issue, right? So now you can see that our app is not broken anymore. So the problem was that when I did not put this in expanded, the width that the list was supposed to take was unspecified, and so the app was confused as to how to render it, right? So when I do put the expanded widget, all it says is that take up as much space as you can. If there is something underneath it, then that's okay. But until then, take up as much space as you can. So if there's only one child in the column, it's going to take up the entire size of the column, right? So now that we have that, let's add a second child, which is going to be our position widget, right? So let's just add our position widget, and here let's just elevated button. And for now, we're just going to declare an empty function, which is done like this, right? So it just has brackets, which signifies that it's function, which are rounded brackets, and then you have curly braces, which have the functionality of the function, which hasn't been implemented yet, right? So inside this, I'm going to add a text widget that just says button, right? So if I click on, if you can see now, it says button here, and it's covering up the screen, but that can be fixed later, right? So I think here that because I did use a position widget, I think I was using a stack instead of a column, but there's not much difference. I just have to change the name column to stack, right? So if I just go here and select stack. Right? So now you can see that the button is on top because stack stacks widgets on top of each other, right? Uh, Now that I did use stack though, we might not have any use for this expanded, and you can see that Flutter throws these kind of errors when you do use expanded when you don't need to. So like, let me just go here and verify if I have used expanded. Yeah, so you can see that here in my if I can find my list. Yeah, so here I have the list view builder, right? So I haven't used expanded. So that's the reason, right? So if you do switch from column to stack and you see this kind of error, like these many messages showing up in your debug console, it's probably because you're using expanded when you don't really need to. And that can just be avoided by removing this expanded widget, right? So now you see that there was no error. I just reloaded here. You can see that reload time. and nothing else will happen, right? So now we're going to use this position widget, and let's just add commas and refactor the code so that it's save this format, not refactor, right? So now that it's laid out well like this, I'll just go into my position widget, and I have a bottom feature here. I'm just going to select bottom 0, which will send it to the bottom, right? And I'm going to select left. So we've seen before that if I put left 0 and right 0, it will center it horizontally, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do here. And now we can see that, so we can see that our button has expanded to both the borders. So let's just make this equal on both sides and make it like 40 or even 100. Yeah. So now I have a button, and in this button, let's just go to the text and say add new place, right? So you might notice that, okay, let me just add the font too. So Google Fonts dot poppins. Here, I'm just going to set font size. We'll do, say, 24. Okay, that's a little too big. Let's say 20. Yeah. So now you can see that it looks better, right? Like you could make it smaller to like 18. 18 seems better. And if you want, you can increase the width as well. Uh, so that is a little too small. Yeah. So now we have a button, and this button, when we click on it, it can have some sort of functionality, right? So now we're going to cover something called navigator, and a navigator is a very important part of an app because obviously in app you will have multiple screens that you need to navigate through, and the navigator is what allows us to go from one screen to the other, right? So here, when I click on the button, I want to navigate to a different page, and this page, in this case, is the add item screen, right? So what I'm going to do here is type navigator and then dot and then off. So what this means, and if you just select this, is going to add this off context, right? So I have my widget context here, right? So this widget itself, it has a context to uniquely identify it, right? So I'm using the navigator of this particular widget and pushing a screen onto this, right? So if you understood what a stack does, it stacks up widgets on top of the other, right? Similarly, even the screens in a Flutter app are usually stacked, and this is how, if you just click on a back button, the screen on the top is just removed from the stack, and the screen you had below it does not need to be refreshed, right? Like in case you don't need it to be, right? So that's how it works. And so now I'm going to type dot push. So I'm pushing a screen onto the stack, and inside this push, we're going to type material page dot. So what this is basically, it's a widget that renders a material widget, right? Like, so you can see that it's giving out this material page out thing, and this is what our push is expecting as well. So it's expecting a route. So we're going to use material page out, and here inside this we're going to builder, and a builder always has a context variable. And now let's just end this with a semicolon, and here we're going to return add item screen, right? So again, navigator dot off context, which means the navigator of this particular screen is going to be pushing another screen using this material page dot, and inside this there's a builder function, and we've used this builder function before as well. And here in this case, item builder, we needed an index as well because we are rendering a list. In this case, we don't have a list, so we don't have to worry about that. And the item screen is not taking in any variables. So we can just add fonts beside it to get rid of the squigginess and just save it. And hopefully now if I click on this, you'll be able to see the add item screen. Right? So you can see that as soon as I clicked on this, the add item screen loaded. And you can see that Flutter adds an animation as well, which is kind of convenient, right? So this is what I was talking about, that if I add the app bar, I have a convenient back button that is automatically added by Flutter itself, and we don't have to add it on our own, right? But in case you want to add a different functionality, like in this app, I have also add this cancel button and save button, right? So it doesn't have that top bar. You can do that as well. Okay, and so you can see that the button is slightly different. I've done this on purpose. I haven't added the plus icon, and the height is slightly smaller. And this just this will just help me distinguish between both the apps. You can also see that the text color is different, and this can be modified in our theme data. And here itself, if you just go to text theme, so in our theme data, if I go into the theme data widget, I'm going to find text theme, and you've noticed that we are using Google Fonts.poppins everywhere, right? So instead of that, if you just want to set it by default, uh, all you have to do is just select this, right? So now it's going to add this text theme, and in case you want to override or add something extra to it, you can always do that, right? So for now, let me just save this and see how it will work. Right now, I'll just go and I'll go to, let's say, home screen.dart, and in this app bar, right, I'm going to change this Google Fonts.poppins to just text style and see what happens. Uh, right, so you can see that the text has still changed because I'm using the text style widget, but so in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to click theme dot off dot. So again, in this off, you're going to get a context, which is the context of this particular widget, and then you're going to type text theme, right? And then here, if you want to override it, you're going to say copy with, and then add this, right? So here, so in this case, it's theme, but if you just go here and look through this, you will find the right one. So if I just click dot text theme, and here I select one of these, right? So if I select, let's say, uh, headline large, right? And now I copy with. So basically what it's doing is it's adding extra attributes, and we need to decline a headline large theme as well with this in order to copy with it, because otherwise it might be null, right? So that's why Flutter is throwing an error at us, and yeah. So don't worry about this if it is slightly confusing, or instead of adding it generally here, all you have to do is just instead of selecting it individually here, just type Google Fonts or Poppins, and it should be good, right? But I just want to show you what would happen if uh, I commented this part out. Yeah. So now that we have this, I'm just going to comment these two lines, right? And try to show you how it would look. And you can see that it's just showing the normal theme, right? But yeah, so there are ways for you to generalize this with a text theme, and then you can apply this text theme onto so inside this I can set my headline large. Yeah, so here yeah, I can set my headline large and all that here, right? So this is something you could research about on your own. So I just wanted to take like a few minutes to just show you that you can do this as well if it does seem repetitive, right? So here, let me just uncomment this, and yeah, now you can see that we're back to this. Here, what I'm going to do is my elevated button. So here you can see that I only have an elevated button, but I think in my other app I wrapped the elevated button around some sort of kind of size box. Yeah, so you can see that I've wrapped it around the size box. The only reason I've done this is that suppose you have a button and you want to change the way it looks, right? Like height or width separately, right? So all I have to do is go here, refactor, wrap it. So you can see that if I click refactor here, it shows the option wrap with size box, right? I can just wrap it with size box and give it a height of let's say 60, right? So now it looks better. And now if I still click on it, you can see that it will take me to this widget, right? So that is the button, and now we have our functionality. Now let's get into the main part, which is getting our data and adding it to the list, right? So here, what we're going to need is to add a form widget, and I'm going to keep the app bar just to keep have an option to go back until I add the buttons to it. So now I have a column widget, and in this column widget, I'm going to add this thing called text form field, right? So as an exercise, if I wasn't using this form and I just had a column, there is an alternate widget called text field, which is just used to take an input, right? Okay, let's just check both of these and see if you can find any visual differences. And I don't know how this will load because I haven't added any attributes to them. So it might, yeah. So you can see that they're both just taking up the entire screen and they don't have any title or anything. So you can see that they're identical text fields, right? It's just that the text form field has a few more attributes such as this text editing controller, which will help us to deal with the values that we are entering in that, right? So as I was saying before, if I'm using a text field, then I might, so in case I don't need the state of my add item screen to change for text field, then all I'll have to do is just add a text form field and okay, just forget about that, right? So when I have a text field, I won't have this text editing controller, which is a better way of keeping track of the values that you have. And also text form field allows us to do validation, right? So you can see that in this text field, we'll have a function that says validate validator, right? So this allows us to conduct validation on this specific widget, and this will ensure that we are not getting any sort of values that we don't want to take, right? So because this is a user app, if the user is adding a location with which is not really in the right format, and we want to specify the exact format that they want to, you can get as creative with this as you want to, and add all sorts of constraints to ensure that the user is not going to break the app, right? But in this case, I'm just going to ensure that it's not going to be a null value, right? So here in text form field, if I just go here and I look at all these, so there's an initial value in case you want the thing to have some sort of value already, you can add that. And if you're just scrolling here, you can see all kinds of things, right? And so now if I want to give some sort of indication about what this is, so there is an attribute for that. And anytime you're confused about like what attribute to use, usually if you just worked on a few projects, you can go back to that code, like if it's on GitHub, and just check it, or you can just go and search text form field, and here you can see the material.dart file, and here, yeah, you can see that it says in a text form field you have decoration, and in the decoration you're adding name and hint text, right? So Let's just follow that. And here, let's type decoration and type input decoration. And here, label text and just say name, right? So this is going to be the name of the location. And because we're seeing that, like this is extending from this edge of the screen to that edge, what we can do is just wrap this entire column widget because we don't want anything to reach the end of the screen. Just remove the comma from here or just don't select it. Click on refactor. Okay, right. So just click on refactor and okay, it's not giving us an option, but fine. So what we can do is just so the refactoring option in Flutter works in weird ways, but like if in case it's not showing you that, just select padding and select and give it some sort of default value, right? So let's say 16 for now, just to make it very visible. Child, and now just copy this column widget and paste it, right? And hopefully this should make our so you can see that it looks much better now, right? So similarly, we're going to be adding two more text form fields. So I'm just going to copy this, but before that, before we copy and paste it, what we can do is we can make this process easier and reduce the copy pasting. Usually it's not encouraged to copy paste code, but if you do have very similar things and you're making sure that you're changing the functionality, then it should be fine, right? So I have named it, and now uh, I'm going to get out of this decoration and add a validator function, right? So this validator function will give you this, and this is the value. So what this value means is whatever is in this text form field, right? So now this validator function will check all these values, and in case the value is equal to null, right, I'm going to return, and let's check what this value function is expecting to return, right? So a validated function is expecting a string, right? So the string is going to be our value. So we're just going to say value is null, or let's say no name, right? And just put the semicolon. And in case our value has a length that is too short, so value dot length is less than 2, then we're going to say that return the name is too short, right? So this is how it works, and then we'll add a semicolon. And so you can add all sorts of custom messages here, and the validated function does really help. And in case there's nothing, just return an empty string, right? So this is how it works. And if I just go here and I copy the validations that I added in this app, you can let's add item string, and here you can see that I wrapped the children themselves in a padding widget, which is uh, okay. So I've added I put the form itself in a padding widget, and then I wrap the children individually too to just give them more padding. And here, as you can see, my validated function, it has this stuff, right? So let me just copy this, minimize this, and let's just copy this, right? So here I just put everything in one line. Obviously you can do what I did here and make different conditional statements and make sure that everything's being sent. But I think you're also supposed to have a default one. Did I not put that here? Okay, you can see that the function is not returning anything. I think if I return just an empty string, it should work, right? So let's test that out. And now also we'll have another attribute called onSync. So this is the convenient thing about this, right? Suppose you have a lot of text to enter that you're taking from one of these fields, right? And the problem with using a normal text field, not exactly a problem, but it's the fact that so when you're using a text field, every time there's a change, right? So if I just that text field here, you can see if I hover over it that it has a controller, but it also has this function called onChange, right? So this onChange function, basically what it's doing is every time it's detecting some sort of change, it's going to so what we're going to do is set the name, or like, so in this case we're taking the name, right? So we have a name variable, and so basically how that will work is that we have a const name or final string name, right? And similarly we'll have a final string map URL and a final string uh, what else? Image URL, right? So we have these three, and now suppose I'm using a text field. So then every time I type something here, I'm going to have to go into this text field, and here in on change, I'm going to have to enter a function, and I'm going to have a value as the parameter, which is the same as this one, right? So, and then I'm going to have to call this function called set state and set name equal to value, right? So, I can only be set once. So let's just make this y or something like that, right? So there are many ways you can set this, but yeah. So in case this is causing an issue, just change it to variable, right? Or just remove the keyword entirely, and it'll just be a string name, and now it'll stop trying to, right? So what this is doing is every time it detects a change, let's just add this and I'll show you, right? So here, if I just say print on change value, and I set name to this, and I'm going to print it outside, right? So yeah, so you can see that this, right? So here printing basically it's expecting a string, and it hasn't been initialized yet. So what we can do is just do this to stop throwing this error. And now if we go to our place and annual case screen, right? Okay, so I have to copy here. Yeah, so now you can see that I have this text field here. So if I start typing something, you can see that it's indeed like, like printing out my name. So here you can see the switch, right? And here you can see ruthv, so it's basically it's printing, or it's calling the set state function every single time there's a change, right? So this is I mean, this is something you could use, but alternatively you have text form field, which what it's going to do is it's going to set this name to the new value once I'm clicking on a button to like submit it, right? This way what will happen is, okay, what will happen is we're ensuring that it's only set once the user has finished entering the entire thing, right? And here you can see that it's still showing red squiggly lines. This is because new value could be null, but we are taking care of that in our validated function. So we can just add an exclamation mark to tell the compiler that no, it won't be null, right? So now that we have this, is on save, and here because our input declaration is constant, we can just say that, and here our padding is also constant, so we can say that, and let's just increase the padding to 24, right? So if I go back here, you can see that I have name here, and similarly what we're going to do is or I'll just go to, like, I could just copy this one, but then I would have to change everything manually, and I don't want to spend time doing that right now because I want to show you what else is left, right? So what I'm going to do is, so here if I click on this, you can see that there is a little gap but not much gap, right? So if you want to add some gap between these text form fields, you can just add a size box, and it won't have a child, it will just have a height of 10, and just add a comma after this, right? And now you can see that the gap is increased. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the code from, again this code will be available on the repo. So here just copy this from here, and you can see that this is in fact under padding 2. So let me just take the entire thing, right? Yeah, so it might throw an error because our variables are named differently, but I'll fix that once we get this, right? Yeah, so let me just import Google Fonts, and here again we can get rid of the blue square two times by putting a const beside. uh, so here I have name and the value of name. Okay, so we're not using it right now, but we will soon. So let's just change the variable names to, and then the map, the final keyword, and just initialize it to an empty string. Similarly here as well, you can just remove the string keyword and initialize it to an empty string, right? So now it's just showing squiggly lines because we're never using the values, but this should get rid of all the errors that we have, right? So now you can see that there are no more errors, and again this is as const, right? So now you can see that we have our three text fields, and now we're going to see the like the magic of the form uh, widget, right? Instead of using a normal widget and just taking the text and submitting it, validation becomes so much easier in a form, and it's easier to show the messages as well. So you're going to see. So first thing that we need to do is, this form is a unique form, right? And we need something to refer to this. And till now we've been going through all the widgets and using this super dot key, right? So here we're finally going to use the key attribute and define, right? So I'm going to put key and go up here and select and type global key, or just say final form key, or just say form key equal to global key, and in brackets I'm going to say form state and save, right? So okay, so you can't use const here, so we'll just use final because we won't be modifying it, right? And now here we'll pass in the form key, right? And so the reason we're using this is that now we will define our void on submit or submit form function, and in this submit form function now we're going to write the logic to validate this, right? So here I can just put an underscore because I'm just using the form key in a local flow. So here I'll say form key dot validate, form key dot, I think, current state dot validate, right? So right, so if we just so if form key dot current state equals null, just return, right? So now we have this, right? And to call this submit form function, let me just go down and add a button here, so elevated button, and here I'm just going to give the submit form as the onPress parameter, and here child, text, right? So let's just say save, right? So now I have a button that says save, and let's just give it the Google Fonts properties, right? So now when I click on this, you can see all the errors that I was talking about, right? So let me just click on save, right? So you can see this, please enter a valid name, please enter a valid URL for the image, and please enter a valid map URL. So we're getting all three errors, right? So suppose I entered a name, right? Let's just say name, right? So now it follows all the constraints. It's not empty, it's not null, and the length is greater than 3, right? So I think this is more of a redundant statement, but yeah, you can fix that. So now you can see that base name is fine, but it's still asking us to correct the image URL and the map URL, right? So in case you guys have downloaded this locations.dart file, I have this part here commented out. So you can just use these links right here, right? And that's the reason I commented it out, so that you won't have to go look for an image link on your own. So just paste this and then go select the map URL as well. Copy it and paste, right? So now, if I now that I click on save, right now it won't do anything. It just won't throw anything, right? So it means that the form has been saved, right? So now if I just like if I were to print any of these values out, we could see that they were saved. But now once we've done this, we want to continue, right? So what we're going to do is after this, we're going to click on form key dot current state dot submit or save, right? So yeah, so this means that now the form key can indeed be saved, right? And this will save all this data, and this is when it's going to call this onScript function, right? So let me just go back here and show you what I have done in this one. So yeah, so this does return a Boolean value, right? So we know that the form key state won't be null, so this statement is redundant. So let's just put this here and final is valid equal to, right? So if it's not valid, just return. Also, we can see that either not returning anything from the validator or returning an empty string is okay. Returning an empty string still gives us the red value. So I think despite the warnings that it is giving us, let's just do that, save it. Unfortunately. So you can just paste this, right? Even though it is the map URL, right now we're not going to be saving it. So let's just, yeah, right? So now that we've pasted this, let's click on save and you'll see that nothing's happened, right? So now, once we've done this, we'll save it. And after this, what we're going to do is we need to add this place to the list, right? So this is our last step, and we're going to be adding this place onto the list. So we just go here, and now let's access the locations list, right? So yeah, so I have the locations list, and now I'm going to click add, and to this list I'm going to add a new location value, right? And here I'm going to say name will be name, image URL will be image URL, and map URL will be map URL, right? So you're just going to do this, and finally, once we've added it, I just want to go back, right? So navigator.off context and pop. So what it's going to do is it's going to pop the screen, right? So as soon as I click save, if it has indeed saved, it will just pop it off the screen, right? So let's just save this. It's going to reset it again. So here, let's type auditorium, right? And map URL, paste. Let's select the image URL again. So, yeah, if I save this now, I think it should work, but like there might be one issue, but we can cover that, right? So now if I save this and go back, you see that nothing got added, right? But if I just go back and just get this to hot reload, you can see that auditorium is also there now, right? And it's taking a while for the images to load, but yeah, that's just a network issue and not really an issue with the app itself, right? So okay, looks like there's an issue with the image URL. Reinforced with that. Yeah, so there's an issue fetching the image, but that's not really a problem with the app itself, right? Let me just restart the app. And you're going to see that auditorium won't be there anymore because the app did restart. But so, as I was saying, we've seen that it's adding the players, but the list is not re-rendering, right? So what's the reason for this? Like, what could be the reason, right? So I mentioned before that if I'm popping a screen off the list, it means that okay, it looks like my internet has stopped working, so that might be the reason why this is not working. So let me just see if I can log into LAN and run this. It looks like the LAN itself might be down. Uh, all right, so let me just connect to my phone hotspot. And let me just reload the app. Or let me just restart the app, okay? And restart the emulator. So you will notice that the emulator is slightly slow. Okay, so while our emulator is taking its time, let me just explain to you why that issue was caused, right? So like I was telling you before, it's popping the screen off the stack. That means that our main dart screen or the home screen itself is never updating, right? So like the home screen is just staying the same, and once I refresh it, that's when it's updated, right? So we don't want that. We want the home screen to update as well, or at least the list to update, right? So what we could do is we could go here, go to our list item, uh, go to our home screen dot back that close here. So if I go here and look at this list view builder function, if I just select this and click on like widgets in file and I just select list.dart, And here, if I just declare something and declare this as list, or let me just call this custom, right? So extend state plus widget. So we're going to be converting this into a stateful widget. Just for now, I'm going to use the functionality that Flutter provides us with. So I'm just going to say super.key, and I'm going to say build, and here I'm going to return this, right? So return, and now if I go back to my home screen, I can just cut this, add this, so we don't have the locations. Let's just get that, get the list item as well, and this with a semicolon. So now we have our list widget here, right? So I'll just go back here and select list, custom list, right? So yeah, so now that I have this custom list, I can remove this list item and locations dot dart from my file, right? So just make sure that everything is still working. Our list is still being rendered in the same way. Let me just refresh the app. So we covered this in modularization, right? So like we've done this before. It's not a new thing. So I just made a list.dart file and I rendered the list from there. Now what we can do is we can convert this list into a stateful widget. So I'm going to click on refactor and click this, right? So now that it is a stateful widget, hopefully the list will re-render and it will make sure that once I add a new place, the place is showing up, right? So if it doesn't work, we can make our home screen itself a stateful widget. But like I said, it's good practice to ensure that. Okay, so I think I should go this. Yeah, so this is great. Let's just copy that and go to clipboard and copy this, right? So yeah, so it is good practice to ensure that your stateful widgets are as specific as possible. So let me just save this, right? And now hopefully if I scroll down. Okay, looks like it still doesn't work. So we might have to convert our widget itself. But now that I refreshed, let me just go here and save the file. So now this will perform a hot reload, which is taking a while. But if I go back to the app, yeah, so if I go back to the app and scroll down, you can see that Altorium has been added, right? So to fix this in the code here, I think I made my homescreen.dart file into a stateful widget, and so what I did was I waited for this on press to return and I set the state, right? So basically what the set state does is it's going to re-render the widget, right? So let's see if we can do that from here. So okay, you can see why this does not work, but basically it's because the button is here. So whatever output we're getting from this return, we can only call it uh, home screen, right? So here on press, so this navigator.context, if you see the return type, you can see that it will return a future, right? So what we can do is we can make this async and add the await keyword, right? So once I've added this, so I'm going to wait for this to happen. And once this happens, I'm just going to set the state here, right? So right now it's a status widget, so it's not in this option. So all I have to do is go here and go to this. Or what we can do is we can select all the children and put them in one state with stateful widget to make sure that at least the app bar is not loaded. So that's what I was trying with the list here, but as you can see that because of that reason it doesn't work. So we'll just leave it as a stateless widget and just uh, work with it now. Each child. Okay, what happened here? Stateless widget. Okay, we'll fix that. Here, let me just select stateless, click on refactor, and convert it to stateful. Right? Okay, let's just go back to how it was. Right? So here, what's the issue? Right? So let's just see. So, and our list is still a stateless widget, right? So if I go here, uh, home screen dot dart, when I'm coming back from the button, I'm waiting for this navigator, and then I'm calling an empty set state, right? So let's just try the same thing here. I think that's what I did, but through another, so it might be that the app needs to be restarted. So we'll just see that, right? Set state. So if it does throw some sort of error, okay, it does not. So now first let's check uh, if the emulator will work again. Let's just okay, let me just read on here. Again, this is an issue that emulators have because of the resources that they are provided with. So if you do feel like the emulator is not like it's assessing your patience or like you're getting really annoyed by it, then it's fine. You could try connecting your phone if you have an Android phone, or if you have an iPhone and a Windows laptop. It's unfortunately you'll have to deal with the emulator. Right. So now you can see that the auditor shows up, right? Just because every time I'm coming back, I'm setting the state here. Again, this could, like be put into a separate widget. So I'm going to take this entire stack and put this in my widget, right? So, and then make this a stateful widget. And then every time I come back, it's going to set state. And the app bar itself won't have to be reloaded, but all this would be reloaded because we need to show the list, right? So now we've seen what this set state function does. So in this case, I'm not really setting the variable to anything, but in case, I wanted to know the name of the latest one, right? So what I could do is here in my add item screen, when I'm doing navigator.pop, inside this pop, you can pass in an object, right? So here I can just say name, right? And when I go to my home screen.dart and here I'm awaiting it, I can just equal this to let's say temp, right? So I'm just going to say const temp or final temp. I'm going to set this, and this temp will basically be this name of the location, right? And then I can do with it whatever I want to. In this case, we don't have any use for that, so I'm just going to leave it at away where we're not really getting any output, so we're not going to be taking any, right? So this is how we've left it. And if you do feel overwhelmed, or like there were certain parts where I was like like covering something, but it didn't really turn out that way, or like if you feel like there was some part where I was slowing down, you could just skip through it. And if there was some part that you did not understand, you could go back to it. You can text us on WhatsApp with any doubts that you have. But yeah, so that marks the end of this workshop. And as you can see here, we have the entire app complete, and we can add new locations as well. And hopefully now you can understand why this locations.dart file is a variable because we're adding, here it's the var keyword, right? It's because we're adding this new location onto it through the app. And if this was const, we wouldn't be able to add a new item to it, right? That's the reason this is there. Hopefully, you also remember how to, like, so like I only use one example here, but any class that you're using, if you have some sort of doubt, just go here and they will give you some sort of code snippet to show you how to use it. And you can just go and search here. So like border radius direction, bottom app bar. Like if you want to see what a bottom app bar is, uh, you can just go here and it will show code snippets. And sometimes it shows the, yeah, so you can see this is the bottom app bar, and this is a bottom app bar which is looking different, right? So you have all this available on the Flutter documentation. Again, if you need some sort of dependencies externally, you can just go to pub.dev and install from here. The code itself is available on this GitHub demo. And okay, now that we're done working on this, let me just push this to GitHub as well, right? So just add dot, right? So this will push the thing to the repo. So now if I just go back here, so there's the Flutter Workshop demo app, which is the one I made, and then there is one that says Flutter Workshop sessions. Uh, yeah, so this got updated just now, right? And if you can see here, it says C++ and CMake with the majority. So that is because I still have the Linux, Mac OS, and Windows folders. If you don't need the app to work on them, you can safely just go to the folders and drag them and delete them, right? Like if you go back to my Flutter demo app, you can see that Dart is the major one, and you can see that you won't find any folders except Android and iOS, right? So if you're not working or you don't want the app to work on Linux or iOS, Mac OS, or even iOS, all you have to do is just delete the folder, and this will make the size of your entire project smaller as well. And yeah, so that's something you can do. It's totally optional. Yeah, so that is it. I will be ending this stream now. Hopefully, you learned something from this workshop, and hopefully, it interested you in like it piqued your interest into development, or like made you realize that you like development, or some of you might have realized that you dislike development. Yeah, but so this is the end of the workshop, and we're going to be floating an induction form tomorrow on the 24th. I will convey this on the WhatsApp group as well. So yeah, uh, that's it. Thank you.